Alright, today I want to do a video that's basically a nerd video about the 2017 Ram 3500 Cummins Specs. So stay tuned for some nerd details. Alright, so today I want to do a video of the specs of a 2017 Ram 3500 Cummins. Now the details of that title is very important. So what I'm going to be talking about is not just the 3500, it's got to be very specific because things like the payload and the towing capacity are very specific to these details. So it is a Ram 3500 crew cab long box 4x4, and it's a single rear wheel truck. So it's not a dually, single rear wheel, but 3500, and just the details of that. Specifically for the towing capacity and payload, they're going to be for a truck with a Aisin transmission. So that's out of the way. So I want to start with the actual engine because that's the most important part of this whole thing. The truck would not go anywhere if it didn't have an engine. So we need to know those details. So for 2017, and it goes all the way back to in the late 1000 range there. The engine that is in there is in this truck is the Cummins 6.7 liter turbocharged diesel engine. It's been around for a while now, and a lot of things haven't changed. It's gone through a number of emissions revisions, but the current model, specifically, there are 3 different transmissions, and each different transmission has a different power output. So I'll go through those different things. So starting with the manual transmission, which is 6-speed manual transmission, the engine comes with 350 horsepower when coupled to that transmission, and also has 660 pound-feet of torque. It's the lowest, for those numbers, the lowest, the transmission has the lowest output. Sorry, the engine has the lowest output when connected to this transmission, the manual transmission. Second option, you have the 68 RFE automatic transmission made by Chrysler. It's the lower spec of the 2 automatic transmissions offered coupled to the 6.7 Cummins. The output is 370 horsepower and 800 pound-feet of torque. So the horsepower jumps 20 horsepower up from the manual transmission engine, and looks like 140 pound-feet of torque. And then the highest output engine is coupled with the Aisin transmission, which is by far the most durable of the 3 transmissions. So it can take the most abuse, the most power, and the most torque. The Cummins engine is equipped with 385 horsepower and 900 pound-feet of torque when coupled to the Aisin transmission. So 350 horsepower lowest with the manual transmission, 370 horsepower with the 68 RFE, and 385 horsepower with the Aisin. 660, 800, and 900 pound-feet of torque respective to those different transmissions. So, like I said, these are all nerd details. You may not care about them. I do. I'm sure someone else cares about these details. As far as the different specs for this particular engine, I'm going to go through a list of things. I'm going to have a title of what I'm about to cover, and then I'll tell you the dimensions or what have you. So, the block and cylinder head, they are made out of cast iron. And now we're going to move on to the injector system. The injector system is a direct injection system, electronically controlled, with a Bosch high-pressure common rail system. 26,000 psi max injection pressure. It's a turbocharged engine. The turbocharger is made by Holset, HE351VE, variable geometry turbocharger. What the variable geometry turbocharger does is you have the wheel that's spinning to compress the air, and then you have the other side which is hooked up to the exhaust, which drives the system. A normal turbocharger, the fins are fixed on that wheel, and it takes a while for the turbocharger to spool up at low RPM because there's not as much pressure built up coming through the system. But with a variable geometry turbocharger, those fins on the wheel are able to turn and change the geometry of that turbo, and get more boost at lower RPM. And that's amazing technology. The first one to do that in a heavy-duty truck was the Power Stroke 6-liter. Was the first to have a variable geometry turbocharger. This turbocharger also has, using the same system, it also uses that to do its exhaust brake function. So it's an integrated exhaust brake function in the turbocharger. And it does have a intercooler. All right, on to the valve train. It's an overhead valve, 4 valves per cylinder, so 24 valve engine with solid lifter camshaft. Okay, now this engine weighs 1,150 pounds dry. So that's without the oil, without any fuel. None of that is involved. It's 1,150 pounds. Oil capacity is 12 quarts, which is actually lower than a lot of other diesel engines. And I think that's the fact of the only 6 cylinders. I have no idea. You have to ask Cummins. But I'm not going to speak authoritatively because I know I'll get myself in trouble if I don't have any specifics. As far as fuel, so you're going to use your normal number 2 diesel, but it also can handle up to B20 biodiesel. So that's a nice feature that is offered. The engine manufacturers are trying to make this more friendly to the environment, and I think it's a really good thing in most things. Now the emissions controls is another thing, but I'm not going to talk about that right now. The governed speed is at 3,000 RPM. So once you get into 6th gear, say in the manual trans, it'll only go up to 3,000 RPM, and I guess it doesn't really matter what gear, but that's where you're going to max out at your top speed, and that's also where you're going to redline. So some more nerd details. Those were specific to the engine. Now this is going to be more specific to the truck, and this is where that specific model is going to come into play. So again, it's a crew cab, long box, 4x4, and it's a single rear wheel 3500 Ram. So those are some important things to remember. It has the truck that I was looking at had a 342 rear end. So just some reference so you get a picture of what we're actually talking about. This is not the same for different rear ends, not the same for the dually. This number does change, but I specifically picked this one because it's what I would pick if I was going to buy one. So with those numbers in mind, let's think about these specs. So the towing capacity is going to be 16,860 pounds. Again, it's a single rear wheel truck with that axle ratio. So this is lower than what they advertise as the biggest. It's like 30,000 pound towing capacity. It's different in this because of the specific trim and model. Not trim, but model of truck we're talking about. The payload is 4,330 pounds, and the gross vehicle weight rating, GVWR, is 12,300 pounds. That was a lot of information, and I think that information is fun and important. I don't know, that last number is very important because you need to know if you need to have a CDL if you're going to pull a gooseneck. That's an important number. Some people don't care about that number, but because they'll never tow something that big. But if your truck and trailer combination have a combined gross vehicle weight rating of 26,001 pounds, then you need a CDL, even if you're not actually driving it commercially, if you're driving it privately. So, random tidbit, that was free. I hope you enjoyed these nerdy specs that I like to think about. I hope you enjoyed that. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you enjoy nerd information like this and you enjoy my channel, please subscribe. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.